The night before marrying Ethan, I overheard him chatting. Are you really giving up Alice to marry Anna? She's so obedient, perfect for a wife. Yeah, for you. It doesn't matter if it's Alice or someone else. At the wedding, he looked at me gently as he prepared to place the ring. I suddenly stepped back and put down the bouquet. Sorry, Ethan, I won't marry you. Later, I moved back to LA with my daughter and ran into Ethan again. He looked at my daughter, dazed. Anna, she looks so much like you. She's adorable and beautiful. I smiled sweetly. Really? But I think she looks more like my husband. Under the evening sky, the garden was so quiet you could hear the insects chirping. I held a few freshly picked roses, ready to go upstairs. But then I heard a conversation not far away. Ethan, are you really deciding to marry Anna and completely give up Alice? I instinctively stopped and looked up upon hearing my name. There were two people on the terrace, one of whom I knew well. My fiancé Ethan, who would become my husband tomorrow. Under the dark blue night sky, his arm lay casually on the railing, but his handsome face seemed filled with insuppressible sadness and melancholy. Anna is obedient and perfect to bring home as a wife, he said, flicking away ash and smiling at his friend beside him. As for Alice, you know. Right, for you, it doesn't matter if it's Alice or someone else. The friend sighed, seemingly sympathetic. Ethan said nothing more, just lowered his head and smoked moodily. The smoke was thin, but my vision blurred completely. The dew-covered roses I held fell to the ground, petals strewn about. Throughout these 2 or 3 years of back and forth, I'd always felt uneasy without knowing why. Now I understood. He had always been in love with someone else. I turned around, my crimson dress trailing down the steps. For someone not favored, even leaving in disgrace is silent. I lifted my dress and started walking faster. I nearly ran into someone as I rounded a plant. Sorry, I apologized quickly, but straightened up once I saw the person. Brother. Shawn wore a black business suit, with his secretary, an assistant trailing not far behind. I saw the secretary holding a briefcase, puzzled. Shawn must be leaving for work. But tomorrow is my wedding. Why are you running? Shawn glanced at me, as cool as ever. Nothing. I lowered my head, not daring to look him in the eye. I was adopted by Shawn's family at 10, and from day one, I'd feared him the most. You guys wait in the car, Shawn ordered. After everyone left, he walked a step closer, and I instinctively stepped back. Seeing me retreat, Shawn stopped, pushing his glasses up. The night was dark. I could barely see his expression. Only a cold light reflected from his lenses, chilling me to the bone. Are you going on a business trip? There's some work in New York, but tomorrow is my wedding. I panicked, clutching his sleeve instinctively. Are you not coming to my wedding? Shawn smiled mockingly. Anna, we're not blood related. Meaning, I'm not important. Stunned, I let go, my face turning pale. Right, I always knew I was just a foster child. I called Shawn brother, but he only had one real sister. If it were her wedding, Shawn wouldn't miss it. As a foster daughter, having Shawn attend any family events was already a favor. I left your wedding gift on your dressing table. And, happy wedding, sister. Without another glance, Shawn left, but my heart felt like it was struck by a thunderclap. From the age of 18 until now, 6 whole years, this was Shawn's first time calling me sister. For 22 years, I'd been the obedient girl. At 10, after my parents died, I was taken in by my dad's friend Sydney. The first thing I learned was to be obedient and compliant. Obediently attending LA's most prestigious girls' school, following adults' advice into jewelry design, keeping long black hair, always wearing elegant dresses, saying okay more than any other word. But now, I was going to do the most rebellious thing in 22 years. My wedding with Ethan was set for 11 in the morning. In a beautiful white wedding dress, holding the bouquet, I stood before Ethan. He looked at me as gently as always, almost making me think he really liked me. Anna, do you take Ethan as your husband? The officiant's voice sounded. Ethan smiled with the ring, waiting for my nod. All the guests quieted, waiting for the groom to place the wedding ring on his bride. But I suddenly took a step back and put down the bouquet. Sorry, Ethan, I won't marry you. My voice was soft but crystal clear. The room fell silent, with only the sound of wind rustling the treetops. Ethan looked visibly shocked. Anna, stop messing around. I didn't reply, just bent to lift my lengthy dress and walked off the stage. At 11:30, Shawn's office door swung open. His secretary looked flustered. Ethan, news just came in from LA. Go on. There was a bit of an accident at Ms. Anna and Mr. Ethan's wedding. Shawn's pen stopped. He looked up, his eyes cold. What accident? Well, Ethan, Ms. Anna called off the wedding on the spot. What did you say? Shawn suddenly stood up. The emotions in his eyes were more of disbelief than shock. The secretary quickly recounted the events. Shawn asked first, where is Anna now? How did Ethan's family react? Did the old man give her a hard time? All I know is that Ms. Anna changed her clothes and left. Ethan's family is pretty angry. Your father has closed the doors to guests and said he won't see anyone. Prepare the private jet immediately. Shawn grabbed his suit jacket and started walking out. We take off in half an hour, back to Los Angeles. Yes, Ethan. The secretary followed quickly, wiping the sweat off his forehead. Looks like his gamble was right. If it involves Ms. Anna, no matter how unruly Ethan might be, he wouldn't mind. I stood outside Shawn's dad's study for a long time, and he still didn't see me. It was Shawn's stepmother who eventually called me over. She's the lady Sydney married later, not yet 40. After she married in, she had a son and a daughter who are already in elementary school, which secured her position firmly. Madam, you asked for me. I hadn't finished my sentence before a slap landed on my face. Orphaned, no proper upbringing it seems. She looked at me mockingly. Do you realize your actions today have disgraced the entire Shawn family? I will bear the consequences of my own actions. I touched my stinging face. My chest felt like a fire was burning inside. I lost my parents when I was 10. And it was the Shawn family that took me in. Sydney and Shawn's mother raised me carefully. You say I have no upbringing. Are you blaming Sydney and the deceased Mrs. Shawn for not raising me well? Or are you saying that you, after marrying into the family, did not fulfill your responsibilities and duties as an elder? I didn't want to argue further. If I owed an apology, it would be to the Shawn family, to Sydney and Shawn's loving mother. Anna, think this through. Calling off the wedding with Ethan. Do you think you can find a better match than the Ethan family? Then I'll stay single forever. No need for your concern. I spent the entire afternoon at my parents' gravesite. I do not regret my decision today, because I know, if I hadn't done this, and went directly to discuss cancelling the wedding with Sydney last night, there would be only one outcome. I would end up, as countless times before, just going along with it to avoid causing difficulties for the elders. But this was a matter of marriage, of my lifetime happiness. I had to force myself into a corner to find a way out. Dad, Mom, your daughter has been with the Shawn family for 12 years. For the first time, I disobeyed, disregarded the rules, ignored the big picture, and lost my dignity. Would you blame me for being immature? In the gravestone, Dad and Mom's gentle, tolerant smiles remained, always unable to stand by their precious daughter, to hold and comfort her at her most vulnerable time. By the time I returned to my small apartment, it was already 10 at night. Stepping out of the elevator, I entered the code to unlock the door. At the moment the door opened, I noticed a faint smell of smoke. The living room, which should have been empty, now had a person in it. In the dark night, with the twinkling lights outside the window, Shawn sat on the sofa in his black business suit, looking stern and reserved. It accentuated an aura of unapproachability. Brother, I murmured softly, my feet and hands going weak with fear. The wedding incident must have reached his ears by now. I had embarrassed the Shawn family. As the heir, Shawn was naturally very angry. Shawn stood up and took off his glasses. I instinctively retreated until my back was against the door, and I had nowhere to go. By the time Shawn walked up to me, I was already on the verge of tears out of fear. Brother, I called out to him in a trembling voice, instinctively wanting to plead like when I was younger. But Shawn spoke first. Why did you call off the wedding? I don't like him. I don't want to marry him. Anna, have you thought this through? I nodded hard. Yes. I have thought it through and made my decision. What if he tries to win you back like before? Shawn gazed at me. His handsome face, covered with a layer of coldness, seemed unattainable. I slowly moved my gaze away. It won't happen. Won't happen what? Be clear. I won't be swayed, won't go back, and I definitely won't marry him. Do you still like him? I hesitated. Like him? Maybe I once had a slight affection, but more because the elders thought he was right for me. So I went along and stayed with Ethan. But after hearing those things last night, any tiny bit of affection, I had faded away. After all, I was used to being chosen and given up on. I don't like him anymore. Are you certain you don't like him anymore? I lifted my slightly reddened eyes, feeling wronged yet determined. I'm certain I don't like him anymore. I will never like him again. Good. Shawn nodded slightly, and suddenly raised his hand, gently gripping my chin. Anna, as I stared in shock and prepared to push him away, Shawn lowered his head and kissed me lightly. Will you marry me? I was in complete shock. I stood dazed in front of the bathroom mirror for half an hour, still out of it. Anna, are you done? Shawn stood outside, knocking on the door. I hurriedly replied, stiffly opening the door. Brother. At some point, he had taken off his suit jacket. His shirt had 2 buttons undone, and his tie was loosened. It made him look more relaxed and informal. I glanced at him and looked down. Normally, when I saw him, he always had a businesslike, stern look. It was the first time I'd seen him like this. "Have you made up your mind?" Maybe it was his low voice, making it sound gentler. I pressed my wildly beating heart, lowered my eyelashes, and spoke in a voice so small it was almost inaudible. "Not yet." Shawn glanced at his watch. "How long do you need?" I gripped my shirt near my chest, plucked up the courage to look at him. "Do I have to decide tonight?" "Is it very hard to decide?" "Why? About what? Why do you want to marry me? Why do you think a man wants to marry a woman?" "How would I know?" Shawn always kept his emotions in check. You could never guess what he was thinking. I've been scared of him since I was a kid. When I was 16, a senior in high school wrote me a love letter. He wanted to date me. I couldn't turn him down. So I had one meal with him and drank a cup of milk tea. When I got home, the maid took me to Shawn's study. He locked me up there all afternoon, and I had to write a 3,000-word reflection. That little episode completely killed any chance of me having a high school romance. Ever since then, I avoided Shawn whenever I could. He knew I was afraid of him, yet he suggested we get married. Wouldn't that be like living in a prison under his watchful eyes? "Brother, I know calling off the engagement in public was a huge mistake, but you can't punish me like this." "Punish you?" Shawn looked like he was about to laugh out of anger. "Anna," he said, "I don't have time to beat around the bush. Give me your answer by 9 a.m. tomorrow." "You don't need to wait that long, brother," I said. I must have been possessed, because all the defiance I had for 22 years came out that day. Shawn raised an eyebrow, waiting for me to speak. I bit my lip hard, but couldn't meet his eyes. "I can give you my answer now. Go ahead. I don't want to marry you, and I don't plan to marry anyone else either." Shawn looked at me with dark, piercing eyes. In that moment, I was so scared my heart tightened, but he didn't say anything. He just turned around, picked up his suit jacket, and left. I didn't raise my head until I heard the door close. The room was empty again. I was the only one left. No one in this world would ever know. I once secretly liked Shawn. What girl wouldn't? But I knew my place. Besides, Shawn is the golden boy of Los Angeles, practically royalty. How could he ever like an adopted girl like me? The atmosphere in the study was heavy. Sydney looked worried. Mary sat dignified, with a mocking smile on her lips. And the other elders from Shawn's family all wore disapproving expressions. "Anna, let's consider what happened that day as childish mischief. I've discussed it with Ethan. You need to go to his house and apologize to his elders, and we'll move past this. To the public, we'll say you suddenly fell ill that day, and we'll reschedule the wedding." I looked at Sydney. Did Ethan agree to this? Of course. For the first time, Sydney looked at me coldly. "Anna, you acted out, but Ethan is still willing to forgive you. Where else will you find such a good man? Kids grow up and their standards get higher. We're not your biological parents, so we have no control." Mary spoke in a sarcastic tone, and Sydney didn't interrupt her. "Sydney, I'm very sorry for embarrassing the Shawn family and putting you and the elders in a difficult position." I slowly stood up. Being this defiant for the first time made me break out in a sweat. But I wasn't acting out this time. "Anna, what do you mean by that? Ethan and I are not possible. He loves someone else. He's settling for me as a last resort. I know a man like Ethan, with his background and status, would be a great catch for me. But marriage is a lifetime commitment. If I'm going to marry, it's going to be to a man who loves me wholeheartedly. If I can't find someone like that, I'd rather not marry at all." "Anna, how am I supposed to explain this to your parents?" Sydney was clearly aggravated by my words. "I promised them I would raise you well and find you a good husband. I've always remembered the care you and Mary have given me. You never treated me poorly. My parents in heaven would be grateful. As for finding a good husband, consider me, Anna, not lucky enough for that. We're just meddling too much, doing good deeds with no thanks." Mary sneered. "Or maybe she found someone better." I heard Shawn flew back from New York the night of the wedding just for her. Mary looked at Sydney as she spoke. "Well, Shawn and our dear Anna did grow up together. It'd be normal if they had feelings beyond sibling love, right?" "Madam," I interrupted her sternly, "please be careful with your words. Shawn is the heir to the Los Angeles Shawn family. He's a figure at the top of the pyramid. His life must remain unblemished, especially in matters with his supposed sister. In my heart, he will always be my brother, even closer than my biological brother. He's always treated me as his little sister. Sydney, you should know I've spent my years studying, and Shawn has been busy with work. We barely see each other, and when we do, it's always with the elders present. As for your insinuations about our relationship, they're impossible. Anna is right. Shawn and she are just like any other siblings. Sydney glanced at Mary. Don't speak nonsense again. Mary chuckled and sat down gracefully. Fine, the innocent will remain innocent. Sydney, I finally made up my mind. Sydney, I've wanted to study abroad for years. Anna, you're a young woman. It's not safe for you to go abroad alone. Sydney, please agree this time. To be honest, staying in Los Angeles means I won't know how to face Shawn. That night felt unreal, like a dream. Right after he left, Shawn flew back to New York. And he hasn't been back since. So, did he really drop everything in New York to come back just for me? Anna, Ethan interrupted my thoughts as he walked in. I looked up at him. He seemed thinner, with a weary look about him. Sydney says you want to study abroad. Yes, just leaving like that. Don't you think it's irresponsible? I almost laughed, thinking about the girl they called Alice. Thinking about how I only got caught up in this, because I looked a bit like her. I didn't want things to end up like this, making both families embarrassed. But Ethan hid the truth too well. I only found out the night before the wedding. If I had known earlier, we could have broken off the engagement peacefully. But there's no if in life. With things as they are, there's no way I can turn back now. Do I really look that much like Alice? Anna, when did you find out? Ethan looked a bit shocked. The night before our wedding. I overheard you chatting with your friend by accident. I looked at him calmly. I feel like, if you really love her, you shouldn't marry someone you don't love. It's not fair to her or to me. Anna, you're misunderstanding. I'll admit, Alice was my first love, and I did love her deeply, but there's no chance between us anymore. There was a fleeting look of pain in Ethan's eyes. I knew that if Alice came back looking for him, or if there was even a glimmer of hope between them, Ethan would definitely end our engagement without hesitation. His only agreeing to marry me, because he thought there was no hope with Alice. Ethan, I'm really sorry. I turned to leave. But Ethan suddenly stepped forward and grabbed my wrist tightly. Anna, if it's because of Alice that you misunderstood, I will apologize. But this marriage is a big deal for both our families. I don't want you to make things difficult for our elders out of a moment of anger. And I hope you calm down and think it over. Anna, you're just Uncle Sydney's adopted daughter. The Shawn family's support for you is limited. You will need to get married eventually. After this mess, do you think anyone in Los Angeles would dare marry you? Anna, I promise you, I'll be a good husband. As for Alice, I've completely let her go. She won't come between us ever again. I tried to pull my hand back, but Ethan held on too tightly. Let go. But Ethan wouldn't let go. He even pulled me closer. Anna, didn't you hear her? A deep, cold voice suddenly came from behind. I instinctively turned around and met Shawn's angry eyes. Ethan quickly released me. Big brother. Shawn didn't even spare him a glance. He stepped forward, grabbed my wrist, and pulled me to him. Getting bullied in your own home. Is this all you're capable of? I lowered my head, stammering, unable to speak. Shawn pulled me behind him, his face stern. Your marriage with Anna is off. Big brother. Ethan tried to say something, but Shawn cut him off directly. Anna may not be my biological sister, but she grew up in the Shawn family. My father and I will respect her wishes. As for any losses your family may suffer, we will compensate you. Big brother, that's not what I meant. I truly want to marry Anna, but she doesn't want to marry you. Shawn gave Ethan a cold look. One more thing. Alice is about to return to the country. Ethan was visibly stunned. Shawn took my hand and led me away. As we walked quite a distance, I couldn't help but glance back at Ethan. What, missing him already? Shawn's voice was even colder than before. I shook my head. Just thought it was kind of funny. What's funny? He just lied to me, saying he had let go of Alice. But when you mentioned she was returning, he became completely lost. Does it hurt? Just a little. Shawn suddenly snorted and let go of my hand. It's not that it hurts to see Ethan love someone deeply. It's just that in my only relationship ever, I ended up being a stand-in. I looked up at Shawn. Brother, am I really that bad? Is there really no one who would purely love me? As the tears fell, Shawn gently cupped my face, wiping away the tears from the corners of my eyes. You're wonderful. Don't belittle yourself like that. He was about to say more, but I pushed his hand away and interrupted him. Brother, Uncle Sydney has already agreed to let me study abroad. I'm leaving next week. I won't return to Los Angeles for at least a year. Shawn looked at me, lighting a cigarette. Decided. Where are you going? Switzerland. He nodded and flicked the ash off his cigarette. That's good. I'm not sure what Shawn meant by saying that's good. Over the next week, I didn't see him again. My engagement with Ethan's family was completely broken off. I packed my bags and prepared to leave. The day I went to the airport, it was the Shawn family driver who took me. Most of the Shawn family was there, but Shawn himself was nowhere to be seen. I sat in the car, looking out the window. My familiar home, my familiar relatives, all slowly faded out of sight. I didn't feel much attachment or reluctance. As I left completely, I left behind the old Anna and a small secret. Forever in the Shawn family in Los Angeles. The driver drove smoothly. I fell asleep without realizing it on the way to the airport. Miss Anna, wake up, we've arrived at the airport. The driver called me twice, before I groggily opened my eyes. Are we there? I looked out the window, feeling somewhat stunned. I've been to the Los Angeles airport many times. It doesn't look like this at all. Miss Anna, please get out. Uncle Lin, where did you bring me? This isn't the airport I'm supposed to go to. Miss Anna, there's no mistake. This is the Big Brother's private airport. Brothers? Yes, the Big Brother has prepared a private jet. Please get out. The driver opened the door, but I wouldn't get out. Please take me away from here. If we go now, there's still time. Miss Anna, please don't make it hard on me. You know the Big Brother's temper. I sat there for a long time, but eventually got out. Someone came over to help with my luggage. I climbed the stairs and immediately saw Shawn sitting on the sofa, dealing with some work. He saw me, gestured for me to sit beside him, and then continued working. I slowly scooted over, but chose the seat furthest from him. Shawn glanced at me but didn't say anything, returning his focus to his work. After the crew prepared everything, the plane was ready for takeoff. Shawn closed his laptop, stretched his stiff neck, and finally stood up. Want a drink? He picked up a bottle of red wine and naturally sat down beside me. I can't hold my liquor. By the time I had my second glass, I was a bit tipsy. The plane hit a minor turbulence, shaking slightly. Careful. Shawn reached out to steady me. I was dizzy and almost fell into his arms. Bro. Instinctively, I wanted to push him away, but my hands felt weak. Who did you secretly like when you were 16? Shawn's sudden question made me freeze in confusion. When I'm drunk, I answer everything truthfully, but Shawn's family has been strict with me over the years, so I rarely had a chance to drink. I thought for a long time and then answered honestly, Shawn. Why didn't you tell him? I was scared of him. Why were you scared of him? He was too strict with me. He'd make me write 3,000-word reflections as punishment. He wouldn't let me date early. If he knew, he'd definitely put me in confinement again. Shawn brushed my messy hair from my forehead and looked down at me. Not allowing you to date early is for your own good. What do you think those boys after you had in mind? Bro, I felt like I was in a dream. Otherwise, why would Shawn talk to me so gently? Am I dreaming? Why are you not cold anymore? Have I been cold to you? Yeah, you never smile. How about this? Bro. But my mouth was covered. Shawn kissed me and gently covered my eyes. Before that long, gentle kiss ended, I fell asleep. When I opened my eyes again, I had already changed into comfortable pajamas and was lying on a soft bed. Shawn was talking softly on the phone with earphones on. I lay still, eavesdropping. No need to arrange any more blind dates for me. I already have plans for marriage. As for who my wife is, you know her well. Don't worry about her background and character. We'll register first abroad. After she finishes her studies, we'll have the wedding in Los Angeles. He hung up, and I quickly closed my eyes, pretending to sleep. I heard the rustle of footsteps approaching the bed, and my heart started to race. If you're awake, get up and have some water. Shawn leaned over and scooped me up from the bed. I blushed and avoided his gaze. He handed me some water. Does your head hurt? No. I obediently lowered my head and drank the water. I tried to get out of bed to put the empty cup down, but he naturally took it from me. What do you want to eat? Anything's fine. After ordering food, he casually said, after we get off the plane and get to the place, organize your documents and give them to me. What for? Shawn sat on the sofa and adjusted his glasses. Didn't you overhear my phone call? I didn't. Shawn seemed in a good mood, laughing softly. Then let me say it again. Don't. I pulled the blanket over my face. Bro, give me some time to think, okay? In the second week, when I was settled in Switzerland, Shawn returned to Los Angeles. Before he left, I didn't give him a response. Honestly, I was really confused. I came to Shawn's family when I was 10. Even though I was young, I wasn't naive. Even if I did secretly like Shawn, I reminded myself countless times that we weren't a good match. If my parents were still alive, maybe there'd be a chance. But now, I'm just a guest at their home. Even if Shawn's family treated me like their own daughter, I couldn't repay their kindness by trying to climb up. It was unexpected how things took such a turn. The fiancé I devoted myself to actually loved another woman, and I was just a placeholder. And what surprised me more was Shawn's actions and words since the wedding. Everything completely exceeded my expectations. Even until now, I dared to secretly wonder if Shawn might actually like me. In the second week after Shawn left, I unexpectedly ran into Ethan in Switzerland. He came alone, just to see me. As a guest from afar, I invited him for a cup of coffee. Anna, it's kind of ridiculous to say this, but I still want to tell you. Ethan put down his coffee and looked at me, looking a bit melancholic. Alice returned home a few days ago, and we met. Her husband hasn't been treating her well the past couple of years. She's planning to get a divorce. Isn't that good news for you? Ethan smiled bitterly and gently shook his head. Maybe time changes everything. My feelings for her seem to have turned into an obsession. She's still very beautiful, but when I'm with her, my mind wanders. Anna, I often think of you. I think of our past dates. Alice noticed something was off with me. Anna, my heart has changed. I checked the time on my watch and stood up. Sorry, I have a class this afternoon. Ethan lightly grabbed my hand. Anna, can we start over? I shook my head and pushed his hand away. Ethan, I'm really sorry. I don't like you anymore. Anna. He got up and followed me out of the cafe, but stopped suddenly when he saw the car and the man standing by it across the street. Shawn was leaning against the car wearing a dark grey suit. The moment he saw me, he stubbed out his cigarette. Ethan noticed Shawn's eyes, usually detached and distant, now held a trace of tenderness when looking at me. I carried my backpack, cheerfully ran across the street, and stopped in front of Shawn. Ethan saw me look up at Shawn and smile with crescent-shaped eyes. Actually, I don't look like Alice at all. Actually, when we first got together, I smiled at him like that too. But over time, my smiles grew less frequent. Now, such smiles only appear for another man. Before we left, Shawn glanced in Ethan's direction. Then he held my hand and led me to the car. And I, from beginning to end, didn't look back. Not long after meeting Ethan, I unexpectedly received a call from Sydney. He said he was on a business trip abroad, transferring to Switzerland the next day, and wanted to see me. The next day, I arrived at the house Sydney mentioned, but Sydney's expression, when he looked at me, was unusually cold and serious. Anna, out of respect for your father, I adopted you. The Shawn family hasn't treated you poorly over the years. You should know, Shawn is my proud and reliable son, but he is not my only son. Although the Shawn family and he don't need to rely on marriage to advance, his wife's choice must be made cautiously. Sydney, please just say what you want to say. Anna, you've always been obedient and good. I care deeply for you and trust you. Recently, Ethan has been pleading with me. He still wants to marry you. A man who loves you deeply like this is a blessing for you, Anna. This matter, I've decided for you. You were already an engaged couple. If you hadn't caused trouble on the wedding day, you would have already been Ethan's wife. So, don't hope for anything else. Be with Ethan properly. After saying this, he stood up to leave. I wanted to follow him out, but was stopped by someone. Anna, please wait here. Ethan will be here soon. What's he coming here for? Sydney said today would count as making up for your wedding night. I don't agree to this. Let me out. I want to leave. Anna, you don't have a choice this time. The water you drank earlier will make you obedient. I quickly felt odd changes in my body. This strangeness made me panic, but powerless. As I collapsed on the couch, uncontrollably tearing at my clothes. Suddenly, the door was heavily kicked open from the outside. My mind was a blur. I didn't even have the strength to open my eyes, until I fell into a familiar cool embrace. I smelled a familiar scent. It was imprinted in my memory since I came to the Shawn family at 10 years old. Brother, I mumbled incoherently. My sweaty fingers tried to grab his sleeve, but slipped weakly. Shawn's long fingers held my hand tightly at the right moment. Anna, brother is taking you home. The dream I secretly had when I was 16 seemed to become a reality at the end of 22. Actually, midway through, I was already mostly sober. But Shawn seemed unaware. He kissed me so gently. I liked that he treated me so tenderly. When I was most enthralled, I feigned unconsciousness and murmured, "Brother, do you like Anna?" Shawn's movements paused briefly, then suddenly became more intense. When I couldn't help but moan, I heard his low, slightly hoarse voice. Yes, on my 23rd birthday, I received a marriage certificate and a huge, dazzling engagement ring as gifts. There's an unspoken rule in Los Angeles. A wedding and banquet are needed for a marriage to be official. Shawn wanted to take me back to LA for a wedding, but my courses needed another 2 months to finish. Besides, I didn't want to go back and face the Shawn family and those circles. Ever since that night Shawn barged in and took me away. He and Sydney had a complete falling out, but Shawn had many assets under his name, quite wealthy. So even without the Shawn family he was formidable. Sydney was initially furious, threatening to disown him, but Shawn remained unfazed. even moved to Switzerland to accompany me during my studies. And after Shawn stopped managing the company, chaos began, with stocks plummeting and billions vanishing overnight. But Shawn seemed calm, rejecting numerous senior executives, veterans, and board members who flew to Switzerland to beg him to return. Until a desperate Sydney called him. Shawn had just one demand. As long as the Shawn family accepted Anna as daughter-in-law, everything was negotiable, otherwise, no deal. Sydney, infuriated, hung up on him. But when he called back the next day, he conceded. Fine, she's been like a daughter since young. If you really want to marry her, then do it. But Shawn and I didn't immediately return to LA for the wedding, because after my courses ended, we found out I was 2 months pregnant. My pregnancy wasn't easy. I was nauseous the entire time. Despite Shawn's best efforts, nothing helped, and he lost noticeable weight. Wedding plans had to be postponed. Bad rumors began circulating in LA. Shawn's mom was involved in these rumors. Shawn made a trip back to LA. I don't know what he did, but 3 months later, there was news. Sydney and Shawn's stepmother got divorced. And it was ugly. Sydney slapped her 3 times. When she left the Shawn house crying, her face clearly marked. Servants witnessed everything, and it spread across LA overnight. The night Shawn returned to Switzerland, he routinely massaged my swollen legs. I started swelling in my mid-pregnancy. My old shoes didn't fit. He was unusually quiet, not trying to comfort me like usual. I couldn't help but whisper, "Brother, are you upset?" "Anna." He put down the cloth, washed his hands. Under the light, his eyes were a bit red as he looked at me. "Why didn't you tell me she slapped you?" I froze, a wave of bitterness swelling in my heart. "Brother, it's in the past." I tried to console him, but it didn't seem to work. "How dare she lay a finger on you?" "Brother, don't be mad, it didn't hurt. Since you were 10, I might have punished you with solitary confinement, but never laid a hand on you." His eyes were red, he was truly angry, even his voice trembled. "Brother, I know, you care about me, worry about me, treat me well, I know." I gently hugged him, stroking his back. "With you by my side, no one will dare bully me again." Back then, I really did act impulsively. A slap on the face, that's nothing. You can be as impulsive as you want, Anna. With me around, you can do whatever you want. All right then. But you better not find me annoying in the future. Of course not. Shawn gently hugged me and touched my swollen belly. "Has our daughter been behaving these past few days? Is she giving you any trouble?" The baby hadn't been born yet, but Shawn was set on having a daughter, and was already acting like a doting father. "She's been really good, not bothering me at all. She's just like you." "Of course, she's my daughter. She's gonna be just like me." But when the baby was born, and her features started to take shape, everyone was amazed at how much she resembled Shawn. If it weren't for her eyebrows and little mouth looking like mine, she'd be Shawn's exact mini-me. After Sydney saw the baby on video, he couldn't get enough. He kept hounding us to hurry back to Los Angeles. If it weren't for his frail health and inability to handle long flights, he probably would have flown to Switzerland already. Because I had a rough pregnancy, Shawn made me rest for a full 3 months after giving birth. It wasn't until the doctor personally guaranteed my full recovery that Shawn started planning to bring us back to Los Angeles. Shawn had been going back and forth between LA and Switzerland, rarely using his private jet. But this time, bringing us back, he made a big show of it, like he wanted to announce it to the world. On the plane, our baby was asleep. Shawn suddenly said to me, "Last year, Ethan and Alice got married." I responded with a slight "oh," not even looking up. "They agreed to a divorce 6 months ago." Surprised, I looked up. "How come?" Shawn held my hand, playing with it for a while before saying, "What do you think?" He may have been with Alice, but his heart was always somewhere else. I couldn't help but laugh. "I smell a hint of jealousy here." Shawn pulled me onto his lap. "Let's go back to Switzerland after our wedding. That way, no one here in LA will keep thinking about you and bothering me." I leaned in to kiss him, sweetly saying, "I'll do whatever you say, big brother." One day, just before the wedding, I took our daughter out for some shopping and unexpectedly ran into Ethan. "Anna, you now." He looked me over carefully, unable to hide the admiration in his eyes. "You look even more beautiful than before." "Thanks," I smiled, passing a teething biscuit to the baby in the stroller. She grinned back at me, looking absolutely adorable. Ethan looked at her, a bit lost. "Anna, she looks a lot like you. She's very cute and pretty." As a mother, there's nothing better than hearing praise for your child. I was no exception. Our baby was soft and pretty from the start, and as she grew, she became even more doll-like. I could hear compliments about her a million times and never get tired of it. I couldn't help but bent down to kiss her little face, smiling sweetly. Really, but I still think she looks more like my husband. I think she looks like you, Ethan said, his voice tinged with bitterness. Anna, is he good to you? My smile grew even brighter. Ethan, that should be obvious, shouldn't it? Indeed, a woman's face can plainly show whether her marriage is happy or not. A happy marriage is even better than the most expensive cosmetic treatments. My husband's here to pick us up. Goodbye, Ethan. I waved at him, pushing my daughter towards the car nearby. Shawn stepped out of the car and walked briskly towards us. Honey, I waved, smiling, and stopped. He reached me, took the stroller, and wrapped his other arm around my waist. In the hustle and bustle of the street, he kissed me lightly, without a care in the world. Our daughter gurgled and waved her little hands in the stroller. This was the kind of happiness I had never dared to dream of. Now, it was real and within my grasp.